Hello, everyone. Today we'll continue talking about Descartes' Meditation 1. Meditation 1 is a series of arguments aimed to show that empiricism is not the right ground for knowledge. That empiricism that is basing one's knowledge on the basis of the senses is not the way to attain true knowledge. And there's a couple of arguments, the arguments against the credibility of the senses, the dreaming argument, and now finally the most powerful of them all, the evil genius or the evil demon argument. And they're progressively stronger. And they aimed at undermining the possibility that the senses or beliefs on the basis of the senses can ground the kind of knowledge that gives you certitude, the kind of knowledge that makes it impossible for you to be mistaken, the kind of knowledge that is unshakable like math. Empiricism or the senses just are not the right way of attaining that kind of knowledge, Descartes argues. So the argument for on the basis of the evil demon requires a little bit of a setup. So let me give you the setup. So look at this cup. It's a very cool cup, right? It's a cup from a Mayan priest. The Mayans were a very well-established civilization, pre-Columbian civilization in Latin America. It's one of the great civilizations before the West came and changed things radically. And I really like this cup. It's a cool cup. By the way, the Mayans were not the Aztecs. The Aztecs were the ones that are notorious for human sacrifice, for taking out the beating, heart of a person and then showing it still pumping in the air. That's pretty kind of gruesome. That's not it. This is a different civilization, a much more civilized civilization. They were astronomers, they were scientists, they were philosophers. But anyway, here's a cup. What is the empiricist story for knowledge? Well, there is the cup. I look at it, I open my eyes, and I have this sensation, this kind of experience grounded in the senses that puts me in direct contact with, or that grounds my belief that there's a cup in front of me. Descartes is going to give us powerful reasons for doubting that story. And let's think about what happens exactly, or at least more carefully, when we do this, right? How exactly does this work? I open my eyes, have an experience of a cup. The senses put me in direct contact with the cup. The empiricist says something like, the senses are windows onto reality. They're connections onto reality. They're the bridges that connect our mind to the real world by having experiments or sensations of the real world. In one false way that you might think that happens, the following theory is false, is by having a theory of sight, a theory that says when I open my eyes, this kind of thing comes out of my eyes, this kind of like ray, called sight. And this sight comes out of my eyes and touches things. So there is the cup, I open my eyes, the sight comes out of my eyes, it touches the cup, it kind of grabs a hold of the cup in such a way that my experience of the cup includes the cup itself. My experience of the cup is kind of something that is caused, or it is my sight reaching out of my mind into the real physical world and kind of displaying the world as it is in itself, displaying the world before my eyes in a kind of transparent way, without distorting it, without changing it. It just shows me reality as it is. My sight comes out of my mind, touches, and goes out and touches the real world and kind of lays it before me in a way that is transparent. I just see reality. That's a cool story. It's a false story. That's not how sensation works, right? The way sensation works, and people have known this for a long time, is the reverse. Nothing comes out of my eyes and touches things and like puts me in direct contact with things. It's the reverse. Things go into my eyes. Light goes into my eyes. So the closer story to how things actually work is that there is a physical object, the cup, light hits it. And there are a lot of physical properties of the surface of the cup that we don't have to get into, but the light hits those physical properties and it encodes information about those in such a way that when the light bounces back, the light in the air, the one that is between my eyes and the cup, has encoded information about some of the physical properties of the cup. And then the light travels into my eyes, it hits my eyes are kind of holes that are receptive of light, they receive light. And the eyes are very sophisticated, right? They decode the information, encode it in the rays of light, the wavelengths of the rays of light, They, transfer that information into my brain. That information is converted into electrical signals, which are themselves interpreted by my brain. And somehow, at the end of that story, this mental image pops up. My brain somehow creates this experience that includes something like a picture or representation or like inner movie theater of the cup, right? There is this thing caused by my brain, the experience of the cup, that is kind of initiated by the physical description I gave you. That's how I experience. I mean, a lot of details are missing, but that's the basic correct story about sensation. Things are outside, light hits it, light travels into my eyes decode the information of those, the information in the light to create a mental picture of the thing outside. And here's the basic question for us, and it's the question that drives a lot of Descartes' thinking. How accurate is that mental picture? How accurate, how much does it correspond to reality? This inner theater of experience provided by the senses, how faithful is it to the real world? How much does the real world look like the image, internal theater image I have of it? The thing that results in the sophisticated, apparatus, sensory apparatus that includes my eyes and my brain and so on. How accurate is it? How much does it describe or represent the way the world actually is? And that's a real question. And in order to get a sense of how serious the question is, how real the question is, go back to the cup again, right? So there's the cup, and there's distance between my eyes and the cup, and the distance light, travels through there. Think about the light in between my eyes and the cup. Once the light has the relevant information, has encoded the relevant information coming from the physical features of the surface of the cup, once that's there, the cup is no longer needed. I would have exactly the same experience of the cup, even if there is no cup, provided that the light here has the right kind of information. In other words, my experience of the cup does not require the cup to be there. So here's another example to give you, here's another example to illustrate this. Think about looking up at the stars at night. You look up at stars and they're gorgeous, especially if you don't live near the city, right? You can see all of the great stars. It turns out that stars are very far. They're light years away, many light years away, depending on the star. And what that means is that it takes years traveling at the speed of light to get to those stars. So let's consider one star that is supposed it is 10 light years away. That's not that far. But still, it took the light, which travels extremely fast, 10 years to get from the star to your eyes. That's what it is for it to be 10 light years away. So when you look up at the star, at the sky, you see a star that is 10 light years away. What's happening is that the light that left the star 10 years ago is now hitting your eyes. So the mental image, the experience that you have of that star is really of the star as it was 10 years ago when the light left. So it could be that the very star you're looking at, that's 10 light years away, died 9 years ago. It became a supernova and it died and it's no longer there. It's no longer shining anyway. So just news have not reached to you of that. You would keep seeing the light until 10 years and down the line when the light hits you. Sorry, I'm not saying that well. Let me try it again. If the star died 9 years ago, for the past 9 years, you've been seeing something that's not really there. It's not until another year when the 10-year mark hits that you would see the event that happened 10 years ago, which is the death of the star. You've been looking at a star for 9 years that has no longer been there. Though what you've been seeing is the light that was leaving the star when it was there those years ago. So there is space between your experience of the world and the way the world is. And the star illustrates the temporal gap between the occurrence of your experience and the object as it was when the light left that object that your experience is trying to represent. But that's not the only gap there is. not just the temporal gap. There's also the gap of accurate representation. Are the objects outside of our mind just like, or do they correspond with, are they similar to our images of them, our inner theater, our experience of them? That's a very hard question. And the evil genius argument is going to give you reasons for doubting that. So let's actually look at it. So premise number one for the evil genius argument: it is possible that there's an evil demon trying to deceive me about everything I know. So it is possible that there is a godlike being, but it's devious, it's deceptive. And it gets a kick out of deceiving you into thinking that you're experiencing something when you're not. So look at my cup again, right? In the good case, the veridical case, the normal case, the one in which we hope we are, there is a cup that has the features that looks like the Maya, right? Like that looks just like what my experience is telling me it looks like. So there is this physical thing, light headset, it drops to my eyes, my experience is there. And my experience matches or corresponds to or is similar to the thing that that is causing it, namely the cup. That's the real case. That's the good case. That's the veridical case. That's, we're hoping, the normal case. But I can also be hallucinating the cup, in which case my brain will be doing something very similar to what it's doing when it's the good case, with the veridical case, but there will be no cup there. I can be dreaming the cup, in which case my brain will be doing something similar, creating the experience, but there would be no cup there. There are cases in which the experience is there, but no object, no corresponding object. Not because there's a temporal lag, like in the case of the star, but because something has gone wrong. Something in the very process of creating experiences mismatches the experience in the real world. What Descartes is thinking, what he's considering here, is that happening systematically. There being a being, an evil demon, who gets a kick out of deceiving you. So the evil demon creates into your mind the experience of a cool cup, but there is no cool cup. And then you form that belief, oh, look at the cool cup, it's a cool Maya. But there is no such thing there. And the evil demon gets a kick, like, haha, I'm deceiving this person, haha. Descartes is not saying that there is such a being, such an evil demon. He's saying that it is possible. For any experience that you have, it is possible that it is not the good case, not the veridical case of the object is there, the light travels in, right? It's not the veridical case, not the real case, not the true case. For every experience, it could be the work of this evil demon that is just creating the experiences for you, either by manipulating the information that comes through the light or by some other means. It doesn't really matter what the means are. The point is that there is a gap between your experience, grounded in sensation, and the object in the world that is being represented by that experience. And it is possible that there's an evil demon who is feeding your brain, your mind, the wrong kind of information, and your experiences do not match reality. The reality that you think you're experiencing is just not there. Much like what happens in a dream. You're laying in bed and you think you're doing something else. Something like that. The evil demon can, or if the evil demon exists, create this whole life story, which you think you're living, but you're not. You're really someplace else. Now, suppose that, it's possible that the evil demon, this deceptive, exists. Claim number two, premise number two. If such a evil demon existed, I would be wrong about everything I know that is based on my experience. All of my experiences will be faulty. They wouldn't correspond to reality. There wouldn't be a real world out there that matches my experience of it. Everything that I know, or everything that is based on my experiences, would be faulty, because it would just be the result of the evil demon feeding me false information. Therefore, it is possible for me to be wrong about everything I think I know. So now this is much more ambitious than before. It says that every single belief connected with my experiences could be faulty, because it could be based on faulty information fed to me by an evil demon. 3, again, is relatively benign. It says that it's possible that that's the case. So it's not telling you to think that it is true, but it's pointing out that it is possible that you're systematically deceived on the basis of your experiences. If we throw in methodological doubt, the relatively benign 3 becomes a lot more significant. Again, methodological doubt, withhold dissent from any belief which is subject to the slightest doubt. 3 says, it is possible for you to be wrong about everything that is connected to your experience. Your experiences need not match anything in the real world. So all of your experiences can be mistaken. That's possible. Given methodological doubt, if there's slight doubt, suspend belief. It follows that I must withhold dissent, suspend belief about everything I know which is grounded in my experiences of the real world, of the world. So it seems that I can know nothing for certain. For knowledge is, the assumption is here, your experiences or your beliefs or your judgments corresponding to the way the world is. But if all of your experiences and then your judgments on the basis of your experiences can be, it's possible for them to all be wrong, then you don't know with you know with certainty that any of those do correspond to the world, and therefore that you know anything. So this is the most kind of devastating argument against relying on the senses for knowledge. And here, this is not in the text, but I like to put it forward because it has the same kind of structure. And when I was growing up a few years ago, The Matrix was a big thing. It's a movie. The new generation does not seem to know of it, or at least some of it. Some people know it of the movie, some people do not. I encourage you to see it as a great movie. It made a big splash. It's kind of one of the marks of a previous generation, and here's the basic premise of the movie. It looks like the evil demon argument. The person on the right, Neo, is the main character. And the movie begins by just the person having a normal life. But as the movie develops, it turns out, and the person to the left and the back, Morpheus, he's the one that reveals the truth to Neo. And it turns out that Neo is not actually living the life that he thinks he's living. It turns out Neo, like virtually, like most human beings, not all, but most human beings are not really living the lives that they think they're living. Their whole life up until now has been a prolonged dream. Neo is actually attached to a machine someplace else. He was grown by machines as a battery to extract energy from him. There was this huge, like a lot of these post-apocalyptic movies, there was a huge battle between machines and men lost. And then humans are kept merely as batteries for feeding the machines, the energy the machines need. And the way in which humans are kept in their place is by being fed from birth. This narrative, their story, this false story about who they are, where they live, they're really just attached to a machine being fed information into their brains. Much like the senses feed us information that we think connects us to the real world, to the world of the empirical world. But Neo is just sitting somewhere and being fed information by a machine. He thinks he's at work. He thinks he's going to parties. He thinks he has friends. He thinks he has a life, but it's all a false story fed into his head by a machine, a very sophisticated machine. And the Matrix is the name of like the computer program that is, arranging all of that information. So one of the great moments of the movie is when Neo realizes, everything that I thought I knew, all of my experiences of the world were false. The world is not like I've been experiencing. My experiences have been deceptive, the mere fabrications of a computer program. And then he wakes up to the real world and the story continues. It's pretty cool. You should see it. But given that premise, which looks like the evil demon, except that the thing doing the deception is a machine, on the basis of this story, we can make the following argument. Premise number one, it is compatible with all my evidence, that is with all of my experiences that I'm in the Matrix. And it's crucial to see that that is true. If you say, but no, like I can talk to my mom and ask her, hey, are you here too? Do you experience this thing too? I'm looking at the cop. Do you see it too? And she would say, yeah, of course, I'm looking at it. Or say, well, I'm looking at it, but I can also touch it, and like a different sensory kind of input. So I can prove that I'm not in the Matrix. I can prove that my experience is not being the product of deception. If you're thinking that you're not understanding, you're not fully grasping the claim here, The thought is that all of your experiences grounded in the senses are systematically deceptive. So when you think you're seeing the cup, some information is given to your mind. When you think you're touching the cup, a different kind of information is fed into your mind. So they're just consistent deceptions. When you think you're asking your mom, hey, do you see it too? Then you're in your brain, your mind, more information is being fed about this person who's your mom who's telling you, yes, I see it too. It's just all choreographed or arranged in this kind of orchestrated in this particular way that is consistent, but it could all be false, right? It could all be deceptive. All of your experiences, which you take to be your evidence for understanding reality, can be the result of something like a matrix or an evil demon that is feeding those information into you, to your mind. So if it is compatible with all the evidence that I have that I'm in the matrix, it is possible for me to be in the matrix. I have no evidence that I'm not in the matrix, and therefore I do not know that I'm not in the matrix. I'm not by Descartes' standard of knowledge that have certitude. I have no such certitude. It is possible. It's compatible with all my evidence. Next claim. I know that my senses are reliable, that I can trust that when I have an experience of the cup, there is a cup in the real world that looks like, that corresponds, that matches my experience. I know that my senses are reliable, only if I am not in the matrix. If I am in the matrix, or I'm the object of deception by an evil demon or something like that, then when I have the experience of the cup, there is no cup there. It's just my experience of the cup, like a dream, like a hallucination. There's nothing there in the real world that matches it. So I know that my senses are reliable only if I know that I'm not in one of those cases of deception, hallucination, the matrix case. But I do not know that, right? That's premise number 2. I do not know that I'm not in those cases. Therefore, I do not know that my senses are reliable. I cannot know that my experiences of the world on the basis of the senses are adequate, are accurate. They represent the way the world is. That's a very kind of powerful conclusion that seems to lead to radical skepticism. That's the most powerful argument that Descartes puts forth. Descartes himself is not a skeptic, so he's going to try to get us out of this skeptical trap. He's going to argue that we can, in fact, know that reality is the way that the senses have it, but it cannot be by just trusting the senses. Just trusting the senses like the empiricists do is not good enough. We do not know that that is correct. And these arguments indicate that that is the naive way of trusting the senses. We're philosophers, we're scientists. We want to know, not just naively trust, not just have this kind of faith in the senses. So let's end here. We'll look in a more constructive Descartes building up, showing that we can know. I'll see you next time. Bye.